Before we look at some cut candidates for the Browns, I do want to know, what was the first Browns game you ever went to? Get in the comment section. Don't be a stranger. I would love to see what was the first game you ever attended. Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Coming up on today's show, I want to run through some surprise cut candidates. Now that we have gotten through all the spring practices and most importantly, mandatory minicamp, did we see anyone's stock go up or down that could make someone more of a bubble player than they were maybe just a few weeks ago? So I do want to preface with these are surprise cut candidates. I'm not saying that these guys are likely to get cut, but they very well could be on the chopping block when roster cutdown day gets here. First guy I want to look at is someone I did not expect to be talking about, but stick with me, and I think you'll see why we're talking about running back D'Onta Foreman. So, why would the Browns cut someone they just signed? That doesn't make sense, and you're not wrong for thinking that. But I do want to revisit a quote from Andrew Berry just earlier this week on NFL Network when talking about Nick Chubb, saying, one of the moments that we're all looking forward to is the first time he runs out of that home tunnel for his debut of the 2024 season. And if you really look at every single letter and every single word there, you can make the argument that he may be hinting towards Nick Chubb returning for week 1 against the Cowboys, since that's the first home game of the year. And Barry said home tunnel, not just any tunnel, for the debut of his 2024 season. Which doesn't mean his first game in Cleveland, but the first game of the season, also coinciding at home. But let's get back to D'Onta Foreman. So if Nick Chubb does come back on the much sooner side than maybe what the Browns were expecting back when they signed Foreman in March, that could make Foreman, replaceable. He signed a 1-year, $1.29 million contract, but what's important to look at here is the guarantees, right? They're only on the hook for $335,000. So they can move on from him and not really be out a lot of cash. It's not being out $1.129 million, it's being out $335,000. The reason why we're talking about him, though, is Jerome Ford really appears to have a good stranglehold on the backup / starting running back position, right? Backup to Nick Chubb, and when Nick Chubb's not out there, then he's the RB1 of this team. So if Foreman isn't really shaping up to be the backup to Chubb, and Chubb is shaping up to have a sooner return than maybe expected back in March, what's Foreman's role on this team? It's not special teams. He doesn't have a lot of special teams value at all to his game. We saw Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong Jr. and Nyheim Hines. They're kind of all penciled in to be this team's return guys. So now I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, well, wait a second. Let's just say Nick Chubb is back for week 1 against the Cowboys. When you look at this Browns running back room, do you need Chubb, Ford, and Foreman? Probably not, because if Foreman's not contributing on special teams, why not take someone that will, like Pierre Strong Jr.? Because Foreman's definitely not going to contribute on the field very much if you have Nick Chubb back. And I don't dislike D'Onta Foreman as a player. Back in 2022 with the Panthers, he had 900 yards, 4.5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. He made something out of a really putrid Panthers offense. But I just circle back to no special teams value. Maybe Nick Chubb's back sooner than the Browns thought back in March when they signed Foreman. And Jerome Ford is already shaping up to be this team's backup / starter when Nick Chubb's not there. And now I'm wondering, so what's Foreman going to do other than collect paychecks, right? So for that reason, I wouldn't be blown away if Foreman is cut because Chubb returns sooner than expected, and they're not going to get special teams out of him. Before we look at the next surprise cut candidates, last Tuesday it was, I had a meeting with my boss, who, by the way, is the host of our Michigan Football Report and a huge Michigan man. And he said, if we don't get to 34,700 subscribers, there will be an or else. And I don't really want to discover what that or else means. Now, we are less than 40 subscribers away from reaching this milestone number. So if you can't stand the team up north and you want to get free Browns content in your life at the same time, please subscribe so I don't have to come in for a 5 a.m. meeting and bring my playbook too. I'm not joking. Second cut candidate, Defensive end Isaiah McGuire. This one seems premature because it is premature, right? He was a 4th-round pick out of Missouri last year. He's not getting cut this quickly, right? I don't disagree, and I don't think that we will see ultimately McGuire get the axe, but we didn't see a lot of him last year, so it's really hard to have a strong opinion on him. Played in 4 games. He made 1 start, Week 18 in Cincinnati. Total of 94 snaps throughout the entire season. He was predominantly a healthy scratch. But when you look at the Browns' defensive line room, they didn't make a whole lot of changes, which is kind of good and bad for McGuire at the same time, right? They didn't add anyone new, but they also didn't let anyone go. So Isaiah McGuire, going into his 2nd year, finds himself in the same spot he was last year, behind Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Okoronkwo, and Alex Wright on this depth chart. So if you're not moving up and you're staying still, you can make an argument you're moving back. And that's where I could see a path where maybe McGuire, despite it only being his 2nd year, maybe they decide we don't need 5 defensive ends and they go a different direction. The next player I want to talk about is David Bell. He is this fan base's next Anthony Schwartz. Also a 3rd-round pick and, of course, also a wide receiver. But the 2022 3rd-round pick out of Purdue has been pretty quiet, to put it bluntly, through 2 seasons so far with the Browns. 6 career starts throughout 31 career appearances. The issue is that he has actually seen a decrease in his usage. His first year with the Browns, he played 47% of the snaps on offense. Last year with the Browns, he played 20% of the snaps on offense. So we're seeing a decrease in his workload, and we're seeing the Browns continue to draft wide receivers. So when you look at the Browns wide receiver room, let's say the Browns take 6 wide receivers: Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, and now we start to get some bubble guys. David Bell is not going to be there for special teams. James Prochet can help out a lot more in that area. You got Michael Woods, Jamari Thrash, he's a lock. So Cooper, Jeudy, Moore, Tillman, Thrash. I got 5 players, if all healthy, making the 53-man roster, which means Bell, Woods, Darden, Prochet are all going to be battling it out for the last spot. And if one of them is a big contributor on special teams, and with the new kick return rule, that's going to put a lot more emphasis on finding good return players. David Bell may be the odd man out. I also don't feel like we're going to see David Bell get released. Last year for Cleveland, he did kind of have a strong end to the season. He ended on a high note, couple of touchdowns in that Bengals game. Overall in the year, 167 yards, 3 TDs. I still think David Bell will make this roster. I don't think Andrew Berry wants to move on from a 3rd-round draft pick that quickly. Did something similar with Anthony Schwartz, but I feel like Bell is much further along than where Schwartz was at this point. So my gut tells me Bell still makes this roster, but I won't be shell-shocked if the Browns do cut him. Who is your favorite Browns wide receiver of all time, by the way? Let me know in the comment section below. Is it Jarvis Landry? Is it Amari Cooper right now? Josh Gordon? Get in the comment section below. I want to know who your all-time favorite Browns wide receiver is. 4th surprise cut candidate, we are continuing a bit of a trend from the previous 2. Defensive tackle, Siaki Ika. If I'm power ranking these 3 guys on screen after D'Onta Foreman to get cut, Siaki Ika is probably towards the top of the list. And Siaki, if you're watching, I'm sorry. For me, it's just a numbers game. Look at the defensive line. Let's count them out together. Guys that we know are going to make their roster. Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson, Michael Hall. That's 4 defensive tackles. The Browns last year only took 4 defensive tackles. They've never taken more than 5 with Andrew Berry as the GM. So that leaves Maurice Hurst, who I think is going to make this roster because he was awesome last year. And then there's Siaki Ika. Look at me, everyone. How does he make it? Like, there's 6 guys right there, and there's at max 5 spots. And I think Hurst should get that job over Ika based on the way Hurst played last year. So how does he make the roster? For a reason we all forget about. Injuries. Injuries. As a society, and by society, I mean football nerds that watch content in the summer, shout out to you, we get so wrapped up in roster projection, and it's like putting together a wedding invite list, which I'm currently in the battle of doing right now. And you believe everyone's going to come and you got this huge number, but you forget about the no's. You forget about that your weird cousin probably won't come if they live in Portland. So let's not forget about the injuries the Browns are likely to sustain during the preseason. I don't want this to happen, but we would be putting our head in the sand if we did not acknowledge that there is always going to be a player or two who gets injured that was supposed to make the roster. Last year, Jakeem Grant, Michael Woods, Jacob Phillips. 3 guys that, if you ask me well before the season, are these guys going to make the roster? I say yes to all 3. 3 roster spots open up because of that. The year before that, unfortunately, Jakeem Grant again, Nick Harris, and Dawson Dean. 3 guys that I would say are all making the roster. So at the moment, it may sound impossible, but we do have to remember there are injuries. 5th and final surprise cut candidate. We had him in our last video of this topic, but I'll include him again to kind of refresh everyone on the latest revolving around. 2nd-year quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So DTR, remember, suffered a hip injury towards the end of the 2023 season, and that hip injury really lingered into the offseason. We didn't see him much at OTAs as a result. He was participating during team drills during minicamp, so that was a really good sign of progress in his rehab back to the field. Last year, 3 starts, 8 appearances altogether. Unfortunately, I don't think the box score does it justice when talking about Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Like, that Ravens game was just a disaster from the start. I felt like DTR improved as the season went along, and from every single start, he got better and better. But once again, I go back to what I talked about with Ika and the defensive line. It's kind of a numbers game. Someone is getting traded. Like, the Browns have 4 quarterbacks on their roster, and none of them are just like obvious UDFA cut candidates. So someone is either getting cut or they're getting traded. And I do think all 4 of these quarterbacks are good enough to get something in a trade. Now, you're not trading Watson. I don't think you're trading Winston, but I also wouldn't think they would trade Dobbs last year at this point of the offseason. And that happened. But I'm more confident they hold on to Winston than Dobbs. So that leaves Tyler Huntley and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So in all likelihood, Andrew Berry may just be sitting back and waiting for a team to lose their starting quarterback for a period of time and dish out DTR or Huntley for a 5th-round draft pick again. Before we sign off, if you are still hanging out with us right now, get in the comment section. Drop one of these emojis for me down below. Appreciate everyone who watches all the way until the end of the video. And now we bring on producer Trizzy Trace to pick a card. Trace, which card do you want to go with, my friend?
I'm liking the 7 of diamonds today.
7 of diamonds?
Yep.
All right. Everyone watching, get in the comment section too. Give me your card predictions. We'll see if anyone gets it right. You said 7 of diamonds?
7 of diamonds.
Okay. I don't dislike that. I don't think it's going to hit, though.
I'm not too
What would your
confident.
second choice be? You can't switch to it.
I'm not going to switch to it. My second choice would be the 2 of hearts.
So you are actively rooting against the 2 of hearts right now.
I'm actively rooting
I
against
would
it.
too. I'm going to go with the 10 of clubs.
Okay.
What'd you say again?
Which one?
7 of diamonds?
7 of diamonds.
Close. 8 of diamonds.
Oh.
8 of diamonds. Kathy wrote 8 of hearts. That's the closest one. All right. That will do it for us on today's show. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. We're going to sign off, and we'll see everyone later with more Browns content.